I've seen plenty of cases. I've seen plenty of cases where cops have killed other races of people who they thought had a gun. I watch a lot of the crime videos, because I like watching that type of stuff, and I watch a lot of those, and I've seen a lot of them that haven't involved black people that are in those scenarios. I think when those things happen to us, anything that happens that has a black and a white thing in it always makes the news more than something that has a black and black or whatever it is. That I know that for sure because I've seen many cases that are very similar. For example, not I don't want to go off the Hinton case because, like you said, I want to stick to the topic. But even with the Carmelo Anthony and Metcalf with the knife, I guarantee you, if he had stabbed another black kid, no one would even be talking about it because not just because people value white life over black life. I understand that argument, but it's just that I think anytime there's a black and white element to a case, people it stokes a lot of everything else. And then everything else contextually gets brought into that case. Whereas when you have two black people killing each other, people are just like, oh, it's two black people killing each other. So if Metcalf, or excuse me, if Anthony had stabbed Metcalf with a black kid, they would have said, okay, them were two black kids that got into a fight. No one would have raised no money. No one would even care. That's just my opinion. But needless to say, I believe in even this case, had it been a black cop who shot this kid, I don't think we wouldn't have been talking about it from a racial aspect, but we may have talked about it from a police authoritarian aspect. We may have been talking about it from that aspect too. So I think that those are the interesting nuances that come into play that I do agree with Twin. There's a certain cops have a certain level of ego, and I think that and authority complex. I think that's a big part of what happens with cops.
But do
Um,
they feel that same authority over other folks? Do they feel they have that same authority
well, let me. You
over these
asked that
other folks?
question.
Because
Let
I
me
don't
answer
see
that.
that. I don't see
Let me
that in
answer
New
that. Let me
York.
answer that.
I don't
Why?
see that
I'll tell
anywhere.
you why. Because when you asked that question earlier, that's why I like to put context. The reason why we don't see that a lot is because I don't typically see black police officers policing white areas in total. So what happens is that most of the time, black, and this is my opinion from what I've seen. I could be wrong. Tell me. But most of the time, when you have um, melanated police officers, they're typically in melanated areas, or they may be in bigger mixed metropolitan areas like in New York. So you don't see a lot of scenarios where you're going to have three black cops pulling over a white kid. It don't happen because the demographics aren't there. Because, and this is a whole nother topic, but I've
Or
talked
the
about
police? No. Let's go with the police complex. The police in these other communities. I'm not forget black, white, yellow. Police, the blue uniforms, and the white Jewish community. Is this happening there? Is this
well,
happening?
let me.
Are the
I,
blue uniforms in the Chinese community, Asian community? Is this happening there?
so the
Are there a level of aggression and all that in these
no,
instances
I'll tell you
happening there?
why. We have to be honest with each other. The reality is that when you go into some of those other neighborhoods, the crime is not as high as it is in our neighborhoods. That's just a fact. You know what I'm saying? Now, we could talk about why, but when you switch out and you say, well, what if it was an Asian guy with the black cop or a Jew? See, when you do that, we got to
No,
put
no. But
context.
if a crime such similar whatever happens in their neighborhood and community, are they being policed? Are they being brought in, apprehended, etc., so on, in the same manner? That
I
specifically
would
I'm asking.
Right. So what I would say in that scenario, if you're talking about in a Jewish neighborhood where somebody may have a gun or whatever the case is, are they being policed in the same exact manner? I wouldn't say definitively yes, but what I would say is that if is a crime happening and it's a white neighborhood with a white cop, yeah, I have seen scenarios where I literally, like I said, 2 weeks ago, I watch a lot of these shows. There was a white man with a white woman. The white woman called the cops. I think it was some type of domestic dispute. The cop pulled up. They were all white people, and the cop was like, "Yo, put the gun down." The guy did not put the gun down. He didn't point it. I don't think he pointed it at the officer. He may have, but he killed him. And the girlfriend was like, "Why did you shoot him? Why did you shoot him?" So these things do happen. They just don't make the news, is what I'm saying. So
Right,
there are many things that just don't make our radar because they're not spicy to us if they're not black and white. So
right. But was it like put the gun down, pal, or was it put the
yeah,
gun down?
it was that. It was exactly that. It
All right,
was,
send. I will. I'm not dispute. I just like to see that
yeah, I'll
because
send it to you because the thing is that
usually those situations they have warning and they're given ample time to follow the authoritative. You know. You know. You know. Right. The
in
direction
some
given to them.
cases, yeah, but there are situations where cops make decisions and they end up shooting people who are armed. Um, so
That is true. I have
I've
seen
seen
some
many of them
cases like that
in
as
our
well of
community though.
non-black. It probably doesn't happen as much as it does to our community, I will say, but I do agree that it does happen. I did see a case, another it was a domestic with a white guy. They just he the girl called the police. Guy answered the door. He had a gun, and they just shot him immediately. They didn't say put the gun down. They didn't do all that. It was the same kind of split second
They be
situation.
lighting them white boys up
And
too. I
yeah,
Well,
and it does, but I agree. It doesn't get the same airplay, and it doesn't happen as often. And if it does, we don't hear about it as much
I
as
agree with
you
that,
know.
and I would just say that in this, and I'm being sarcastic, in this post-racial America that we're at, I just want to remind folks. The last time I was on, we was did we? I don't know if we spoke about Carmelo Anthony, but folks were upset that their family was getting donations for his defense and this, that, and the other. And just recently, a woman who was calling a little child the
Yeah,
N
I heard
word,
about that.
they raised like $700,000 for her ass. So I just, it's always the, you know, again, they have the right to defend their own. They have the right to, it's, pardon me, I'm just a frustrated black man in
No,
America.
you know what? You know what, Ian, I love, listen,
Why are you so angry,
I
Ian?
love that about you because listen, I know that vibe, and I watch a lot of your posts, and I love you. I love your perspective for that, and that's why I love the challenge to challenge it because I agree with you. I think that there's so many people right now. I think that are charged. Um, let me say this. I think that we're actually in a point in America where I do think that the racial aspect of everything is more blown up than what it really is. I think that online, I think in our everyday lives, people aren't experiencing racism as much as they think they are. But I think online, there's so many narratives now that everybody's like trying to go to their corner. And, there's all these supposed white nationalists who are going to their corner and all these supposed black pride, black power people who are going to their corner. But this is what I'm going to say. I think a lot of it's bullshit because on the black side, speaking for black people talk that shit online and be talking, yeah, you know what I'm saying? But people ain't galvanizing for nothing real. People just galvanizing on headlines and like, oh, you know what? I'm going for the black person. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm with that. But what y'all really about? Y'all,
What
you
they
just,
standing
we
on?
all
Yeah.
have our racial trauma and things we feel. And I ain't discounting it. We all feel it. But it's hard. I think it's very hard to detangle and separate what is and what isn't. It's
So,
very easy. It's easier just to say, you know what, it's all racism.
so
It's
I'm gonna say, with regards to Hinton Jr., I support his actions more than I support, say, Trayvon Martin, Tracy Martin inactions. I'd rather see if his he acted in error. I'd rather see action than no action at all. So we don't have to agree with the unfortunate target that he chose. And I understand that. I can appreciate the action rather than the inaction because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And after a while, somebody's going to erupt, and then there's always casualties of war with people that are innocent.
Right.